Hi and welcome to this video log with me, Wayne, from Swimming, Cycling, Running Today. Well, today we're going to talk about something that affects a huge amount of swimmers. Two things. Firstly, getting a coach, and secondly, pulling the elbow back when you swim. It's hugely important that you don't pull the elbow back, and I'll show you later why. But we have an example of someone who came to me for a one-to-one, and I filmed them, and they were completely surprised by what they were actually doing in the pool. And that's an example of why a coach can help you. If it's not me, it can be someone else, but it has to be someone who knows what they're doing, preferably someone who can film you and help you understand exactly what you're doing. That's hugely important. It's not only good for the coach to understand, but in pictures you can see exactly what is happening as you go through the stroke cycle. Let's go to the computer and I'll show you what I mean. Now, Vince is fairly convinced that he has a reasonable stroke. So he's quite surprised when I showed him this video. This is one of the first videos we took. And you can see that Vince's right arm is pointing back against the water, and so is his left. And he's dropping his elbows quite dramatically. As he comes close to us, that becomes clear. And you can see every single time he pushes that hand forward, and I'll go back a bit, every time he pushes that hand forward, he comes to a dead stop in the water. You can actually see him stopping himself as he comes forward, and you can see that he's literally placing a barrier against the water with that arm, and that can't be helping him. As he comes next to us, we'll see exactly that. You can see how much of a barrier that is to the water, and he's completely dropped his elbow, and he's dropped his elbow because it's rotated underneath. You can see that elbow pointing effectively to the bottom of the pool. You can't hold water with your elbow pointing to the bottom of the pool. It's just impossible. So there you can see a problem for Vince, but there's more to come. Let's just go on a little bit and show you some more. Now if we take the video on from this position, we can see what happens. So Vince drops his forearm and then pulls back with his elbow, and you can see that elbow pulling back. I don't know if you can see, but what he's actually done is he's using the muscles in the triceps and the lats there to actually pull back the elbow. Instead, what we really would like is to see the shoulder muscles, the bicep and the upper forearm being used. He's also, by the way, using his lower forearm to cock that elbow, as opposed to using those top muscles, which would actually keep the elbow high and actually grab the water far better. If we look at him pulling back, you can see he's pulling the back, and he's trying to hold the water mostly with his hand, not his forearm, but he then gets into a reasonably good position but finishes that stroke slightly early at the waist instead of the hip. So pulling back with your elbow, hugely important. Now I have a TheraBand attached here. Pulling back with your elbow is this. You're pulling back, and you can feel, if you extend the TheraBand, you can feel which muscles work, and they tend to be that muscle and that muscle there. What we want to happen in swimming is we actually want to pull back like this, and you'll feel the muscle there, the shoulder muscle, and the muscles there. Yes, we don't feel the muscles underneath work, we feel the muscles on top work. Now if you can actually do that with the TheraBand, you can start feeling what it's like to keep that elbow high and actually pull back with the forearm as opposed to pull back with the elbow. And you should be able to do that just by forcing your arm against your hand, and you can feel what muscles work and then feel what muscles work, and literally feel the shoulder work and the upper muscles of the arm and the forearm. Now that's hugely important. If you can get that nailed, you will actually be well on your way to making yourself a much better swimmer with a much better catch. Now one of the reasons Vince might be shortening his stroke is that he's starting to breathe incredibly early. You'll see as he starts his stroke, he's starting to turn to breathe, and really he shouldn't be breathing until his hand is back here right by the hip. So he's turning early, and that means by the time he gets there he's already taken his breath and he's ready to exit the water. It would be better if it's an explosive movement that turned his head up at the same time, and he breathed much later in the stroke and extended his stroke to about here. Another thing that's happening with Vince's stroke is happening at the back end. You can see with his foot, he's going to kick back against the water, then a little breaststroke type kick there. Part of that is the imbalance at the front where he's pushing out with the left hand, so he's balancing that up. But that's something also that we might have to address later on with a kick back against, you can see that there, kicking back and doing that little breaststroke loop that he's got there. Now Vince uses paddles because he believes that when he uses paddles he actually gets a better catch on the water. So I wanted to see if this was actually the case. So he's put paddles on here and we can see he's still dropping his elbow. But what he's doing, he's trying to minimize the resistance of the actual paddle itself by tipping that down into the water. So he's actually not increasing his catch. He's actually just minimizing drag with that paddle by getting into that position instead of actually holding that hand up and having more resistance on it. So you can fool yourself with these things if you're not careful, if you don't have a coach looking at these things and actually saying, no, this isn't working. You need a good coach who understands swimming, who understands stroke, that can tell you what's going right and what potentially is going wrong. So the huge lesson to take from this is, firstly, don't trust yourself to know what you're doing with your swimming. I don't trust myself to know what I'm doing when I'm swimming, and I think I can feel the water and my body pretty well. But use a coach. Use a coach to tell you, hang on a second, this is going wrong, or this is going absolutely right. You need to know what you need to correct, and it's hugely difficult to do that on your own. Once you have a coach, you need to know that's a good fit, that they're doing exactly for you what you want. There's no shame in saying to a coach, look, great, thanks very much for what you've done, but I think I'm going to move on to someone else. I think we need to go in a different direction. That's perfectly okay. Everyone can say, hey, great, wish you luck in the future. Hopefully we'll see each other at races. That's not a problem. You don't have to stick with something if it's not necessarily working for you. But above all, what I want you to take from this video is that we do not pull our elbow back. We actually pull our forearm back using the muscles on the top of the arm, not the muscles on the bottom of the arm. A huge difference, and you can practice that at home with TerraBands or without, just by getting some resistance against that arm and feeling the muscles that actually should be working. Well, hopefully that's helped you. I'll be in Sheffield next week, so hopefully I'm getting a vlog from there, from the British National Championships. I'm there all week, so hopefully I can pick something up there and actually bring you something useful from some really top swimmers in the UK. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Thanks very much.